So this is the whitetail here.
All right, for those listening and not watching, first of all, you should go check it out on DeerCast or on YouTube. This deer is gigantic.
Jeez.
The mass all the way through.
When a gobbler's personality changes, his head color changes. There's 4 or 5 strutters, and there's one with a really snow white head. He's the one that's going to do all the breeding. He's the dominant brother or the dominant strutter in that group.
You knew what you had, right? You bet on yourself.
You gotta have balls.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast, powered by DeerCast. Matt, what are you sipping on this morning?
I'm sipping on some First Farm 1P energy, buddy.
Yeah, you
Orange Sunrise, the only way to go.
You are my sunrise.
Ah, thank you. You're Tim Chelswick.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt Drury. And giggling on the other end of the line, Mr. Fred Zink.
Legendary.
Up, Fred?
How's it going, Fred?
Good, man. How you boys doing?
We're doing good. We appreciate you jumping on with us.
Fred's one of those guys that you could talk to about anything.
So, and I don't know, the audience probably knows this. Most everybody in the outdoors knows this, but Fred's the founder of Zink Calls and the Avian X Decoys, and he's legendary in the waterfowl space, and I'd say in the turkey space too. So we got a great guest today.
It's a great time of year to be talking about it. We're going to be talking about technology and turkey hunting. We're going to be talking about how do you take care of your decoys? I mean, Fred is the mastermind behind Avian X, so I'm curious to hear his thoughts on that.
And he's also a hell of a deer hunter. So we got a really cool deer story later as well.
And before we started the show before the show, Fred and I were having a chat about walleye fishing.
You're pretty much into everything, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm kind of outdoorsy.
So, when we get into this here, just so you know, we just had our youth season this past weekend. And Tim and I both, took our kids out. One person was
separate, separate families.
We're not a commune. We went separately. Tim had success, and we'll get into that later. I mean, it was awesome. Probably one of the cooler clips I've seen in a long time.
It was nuts.
And then I went with Old Man Winter, and we did not have luck. So we, Dad and Mom have a property, where they live, maybe about 35 minutes south of where I live. And so we have my daughter Lola. She's 8. She's never turkey hunted, pulled the trigger turkey hunted. She went with us last year.
And she's seen Big Brother go and have success.
Exactly. So Dad's like, hey, we got a bunch of turkeys that have been. He's got 24 acres right there in Bloomsdale, and he's like, come down here. We've had a bunch of turkeys kind of coming through the property, and so we set up basically in his front yard.
I saw the driveway in the back.
You can see his blacktop.
I'm not judging.
You can see his blacktop driveway in the back. And so we set up some Avian X Decoys. We set up the HDR Jake, and we set up a hen. And I just put her on the ground, kind of like a lay down hen or whatever. And so we aren't paying attention, Terry and I.
What?
Lola's sleeping. And
what time is this?
They gobbled a little bit when they were still on the roost, and then they kind of shut up. But it was probably I don't know, it might have been 7 o'clock. So fairly early still. Lola is dead asleep. And I look up, and there's two, I look up and I was like, turkeys. And Dad's like, where? I'm like, at the decoys.
About where you'd expect them.
Yeah. And so there were 2 Jakes, but I wouldn't have cared. I'd have been happy for her to kill, whatever she wanted to kill. And so we wake her. She will not wake up. So we're Dad and I are shaking her, and her eyes, man, she just looked like what's going on? And of course we got on him, and I pick up the video camera. So I didn't have a camera guy with me, and I suck at filming. I pick up the camera, and it's in black and white. I don't know what I did to it, and I could not. Everything was blown out.
Are you cussing swear words in your mind?
And Dad's like, just put it down and grab your phone. I was like, okay. So I grabbed the phone. All this is going on, and the Jakes are just pounding the decoy, the other Jake decoy, and flogging it and all that. And finally, we jacked around enough. They spooked and got out of there. But we kept calling them in and calling them out, and calling them in and calling them out. We just couldn't get them killed. We go to breakfast. We come back. We get out of the truck, and he's got a bunch of longbeards around there too. And turkeys are just hammering. So we go to set up, and we messed that up. And so we go sit by a tree and like behind the house, and nothing's going on. We let Lola call and all that stuff.
Can you get Wi-Fi on your?
No.
Okay.
So we let Lola call and we're just kind of jacking around. And the story is about to end here. So I'm sorry I'm taking up all of her morning. But this is the best part. So we go to put everything back in my truck. I mean, the amount of crap that I brought for this hunt was through the roof.
Sure.
So I'm packing the truck back up. Dad's got a little shed there, like an outdoor shed right by the house. And so I'm parked in front of it. All of a sudden, turkeys start just hammering. And Dad and I look at each other like, so we get all the stuff back out. I set the bog pot up right in front of the shed. Okay. And so like the turkeys are behind the shed, like 50 yards. And so
by the bird bath.
Yeah. So I'm like standing right against the garage door of the shed. She's, gun barrel in front of it, just getting ready to shoot whatever walks in front of her. And all of a sudden my sister comes down the driveway. And so she's driving down the driveway and I'm just waving my arms like,
we're doing something here.
She's just, I could see her she stops the car. I'm just like, come on. So she parks the car in front of the house, gets out and just stands there looking at us. I'm just like, go away. And so I'm like, this is just dumb. And so she goes inside. The turkeys are still gobbling because I'm sure they're used to this kind of stuff. And then I'm like, well, maybe there's still hope. Here comes my niece. It was prom day. So what are you doing? I was just like, me and Dad look at each other. We're just shaking our heads. I'm like, let's be done. We've had enough of this. So that was opening day.
So Lola's inaugural.
She was happy to go see my niece, who was dressed up for prom. So, well, I was like, all right, this is the worst experience I could have ever given you for doing this for a living. We really screwed this up.
Yeah, that sounds like a hunt that I would have.
That's right. So anyways, Fred, that was opening day of youth season with Terry.
Skulking around the backyard. Whatever it takes.
Yeah. I'm sure you have some crazy stories. You've been all over the freaking country, all over North America, hunting waterfowl, and probably, I'm sure you've had some other trips out. Like where's the craziest place you've gone to hunt?
I think probably the coolest place I went to Newfoundland. In the early 90s, duck hunted in March, I think it was March or April, and we hunted off icebergs. That was it was really, really cool because we were literally hunting in the middle of the ocean on icebergs for eider ducks. So super cool. Alaska trips are really cool. I've been all over, but those are really cool. 2 weeks ago, I was in Panama fishing. Wish I was still there.
But you've never hunted Terry Drury's backyard.
Yeah. Well, I grew up with kids, so I've taken them a lot of places. You kind of got to do what you got to do to be successful, right? So
that's right.
I see a lot of that going on. The same stories you got, Matt.
Yeah. So I want to dig into a little bit. Which started first? Was it the waterfowl side or the turkey side? I assume it was the waterfowl side, right?
Well, so I got my start. When was Mad Calls?
He would have started, I think, 92? Around 93-ish. 93. Yeah, okay. I think.
So I met Uncle Mark at his first SHOT Show that he ever went to in 93. I guess it would have probably been 93, right? So I had known those guys and, had been traveling all over Illinois and back in the day, right? And then AMS and Mossy Oak. So small world. And so I started competing in calling contests in the early 90s and met Uncle Mark at the SHOT Show in 93. I was there with Tim Grounds, a legendary goose caller and call maker from Southern Illinois.
Yep.
And quite a character, as you well know.
Yep.
And we kept looking at Mark, it's like, who is this guy? He's dressed up, had his glasses on,
hair fixed,
and I'm like, man, this guy's a turkey hunter. He looks like a banker, And I was like, man, I don't know who that guy is, but man, I think he looks like he's out of place. And then Mark grabbed a mouth call and started yelping, and we're like, broke our necks. We're like, holy crap, I don't know who that guy is. So we walked over there, and it was Mark because he didn't look like a hunter. He was dressed to the nines, right?
That's hilarious.
And he started yelping Ground's like, hey, Bob, that's a live turkey over there. So I started Zink calls. I competed all through the 90s and then started Zink calls in 2000. Mm-hmm. And was successful enough, won a lot of championships and things like that. And we started Zink calls. And I started in my dad's or my basement of my house and moved out to a shop. I worked in construction excavating. We had a commercial excavating company, and the call business was on the side. Started in 2000, but during the 90s, I was with Winchester and Browning and a bunch of different companies, Mossy Oak since the early 90s, and so very parallel. The DoD side of things, the mad calls. Just over there on the waterfowl side and not in the whitetail and the turkey side of things. And but through all those years, I started Zink calls in 2000. And I started working for Avery Greenhead Gear, which is a waterfowl company out of Memphis, Tennessee, in 2001. And started that and built all the greenhead gear decoys. And I resigned in 2009. And in 2011, I started Avian X. And our first decoys to market were turkey decoys, actually, goose decoys. So that's when we released the LCD turkey decoy. I think it was spring of 2011 was the first year we shipped them.
What did you think that you could do differently in that space that made you decide to do turkey decoys?
Well, a little bit of history prior to that is my father was a wood carver. Okay, so he carved decoys. All these decoys behind me, majority of them are all his carvings, right?
Wow.
So my dad was a carver. I went to school with a girl that her dad was a champion carver, and I had been going to all these championship carving contests all over the Midwest and Ocean City, Maryland's where the world's held. And so I had known a lot of world champion carvers and seen their work, right? And then I see decoys that were being made, and I'm like, wow, there's like a huge gap between production decoys and true art, right? So I knew there was a gap there, one that I thought we could fill. And with all my years at making decoys at Greenhead Gear, I had world champion carvers work for me, and I become a carver as well. So a lot of the Greenhead Gear decoys, I also carved. I actually did all the goose carvings, did the woodworking, did all that stuff. My wife was actually a carver before I became a carver. And so for about a 3 to 5 year period of time, I spent carving replicas for Greenhead Gear and the waterfowl side of things. So when I started Avian X, I moved to Port Clinton, Ohio, which Tim and I was talking before the podcast, walleye capital of the world. Yep. One reason why I moved here was because of that. Another reason was the waterfowl hunting is really good. Turkey hunting is pretty solid. Whitetail hunting is good. But 2 world champion carvers live, this is the Zink Calls office right here, live a mile and a half from here. They're actually best friends and neighbors.
Wow.
And so the people that designed, Rick Johansson, that carved all the Avian X turkey decoys, is a world champion carver, and he lives, between my office and my house. I drive by his driveway in his house every day, 10 times a day, right? Going back and forth. So it was an opportunity to move up here and work with 2 of the guys that I wanted to help, utilize to help create the decoys. So Dick Rohde carved all the flex tone decoys, the flex tone turkey decoys and stuff, and Rick Johansson did all the turkey and waterfowl for Avian X. And we got to work hand in hand, day after day. And when you can get that close to your carvers, because just because you can carve a decoy doesn't mean you can produce it and mold it and paint it and things like that. So I spent over 700 days in China working inside the factories. And I'm not talking about sitting in the office, peeking my head out the door, see what's going on. I'm talking about literally sitting in the paint line right next to the workers in 100-some degrees, painting decoys just like I'm one of them, to figure out the process. Because you can make one really cool decoy. Anybody can do that. But can you make 1,000, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 of them that still look the same time after time after time? So that's a trick into making decoys. So long story short, to answer your question, it was kind of a turkey decoys / Canada goose decoys were the first decoys I ever made for Avian X. And then the following year, we got into duck decoys. And, Bass Pro and Cabela's was a huge supporter of... So all of the goose decoys made the first year, Cabela's bought every one of them. They bought everything I could make, right? And so I remember going to Cabela's to sell my turkey decoys. And I thought we had a really good mousetrap. That was the LCDs, right? Yep. They were very realistic, somewhat light, but yet they're also collapsible. So people that wanted to put them in their vest or in a decoy bag and hike up a mountain in Kentucky or West Virginia, Tennessee to get to a remote area could still do that. And when I left there, I called my wife. I said, I think I need to get a job at McDonald's because they're going to buy about 800 of these decoys. She's like, 800. And the mold cost was pretty insane. You know, I'm like, man, I can't believe that. And I was talking to them. I was like, why are you only going to buy 800 of these? They're like, it's the best decoy you ever seen, but we can only go with a model that we have. And so the only thing close to that price point, which was $79.99 for LCD hen and a $99 for the Jake, was the Primos B Mobile. The Primos B Mobile at that time was $69.99. And so this is how many of those units we sell. So we think we can sell about the same. I'm like, man, if we can only sell 800 to 1,000 of them, I'm going to be bankrupt first year, right?
Yeah.
So time I got, it was John O'Rourke was the buyer. Okay. And now he's in the industry now, but by the time I got to the Denver airport, he called me and goes, hey man, talk to some people. I think we're going to up it up. We're probably going to buy about 1,200 units. I was like, you know, hey, that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But I thought I could sell 1,200 on a weekend at, you know, Great Eastern Outdoor Show, right?
Yeah.
I'm just, wow, I think they're underestimating. So that year I went ahead and I ordered 14,000 decoys from China.
You bet on yourself.
And I had like 4,000 of them sold, you know, but by the time I think April rolled around, I'd sold every one of them because the reorders were coming in so fast. They're like, do you have more? I go, yes. And so they just started writing POs. And by the end of the year, I had all 14,000 of them sold. It was a gamble. I just thought the decoys was much better. No offense to the Primos B Mobile. I just didn't think it was apples to apples at that point, right? They were just going by price point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's how we got started. And that was spring of 2011.
There's something to be said for betting on yourself sometimes. I mean, you know, there's calculated risks, but sometimes you go with your gut and know, you know, you had spent the time in the industry and around the carvers and you knew what you had, right? You bet on yourself.
You gotta have balls.
Well, and the origin story tracks because as a guy that got started turkey hunting later in life and started with the $7 collapsible foam Walmart turkeys,
Feather flex or whatever.
When you pop open, when you look at an Avian X close up, you think that you've got a custom. Like this is a one-off that like there's no way they can mass produce.
The realism is unbelievable. And so how did you get them to paint each one? Like, I mean, like what was that learning curve overseas for them to paint each one so realistic? So, I thought that was like an automated deal.
They're very good at, they're not good at creating anything, but they're very, very good at copying things. Okay. As we all know. So, the most important part about creating a really cool decoy is when we're doing the carving, we're doing everything. I'm always thinking about the paint. I'm not thinking about the carving and this way. I'm thinking about how I can paint this decoy because that's where the labor comes in and that's the final product. So we design and develop everything based upon paint, whether it be the texture, the kind of texture, how rough, how smooth, how many steps. So we start with photography and video of turkeys, right? And we figure out, and then I have mounts done, and we figure out the painting process, how many steps to get to where we need to get. And then we'll do some sample carvings to where we go in there and we'll have a carving and we'll texture, 5 different ways on the side of a bird. And then I'll go in there and paint each one of those in there to see, number one, which one looks the best and which one looks the best with the least amount of work. And that's the most important part.
Sure.
Controllable, but yet affordable. And so then we call it a study board. Once we figure that out, then we go, okay, this is what we want. And then we start going through videos. And at that time, when we're creating, especially the new modern Avian X Decoys, we had a heck of a team with us. You know, I talked to, Matt, I talked to you. I've talked to your dad. I've talked to Mark in the last month and a half because we're talking about making some new decoys. And whether it be whitetail, whether it be waterfowl, whether it be turkey, we rely on, I've always played sports, so I'm a team player. I got that mindset, right? That I want my shortstop to be on the shortstop and not left field type of deal. And so when I have talent surrounding me, I ask a lot of questions because I want to know what they think and what they think is the best, what's going to work. And so obviously your team over there at DoD is as solid as it gets and as knowledgeable as it can get in the turkey world and a whitetail deal. And obviously we talked about whitetail decoys possibly moving forward. And then on our staff currently we have Tad Brown, which is right there. He was right there at the beginning of Mad Calls as well. And then you look at Paul Buskey's of the world. I mean, we have a team over here at GSM that is very in-depth and intertwined in turkey hunting, right? So if we're making turkey calls, mouth diaphragms, locator calls, decoys, blinds, whatever it is, I always send an email out, as you well know, when I was wearing you out about social media, Matt, is I like to ask a lot of questions because I rely on people that I believe is, it's hard to know everything. You got to know. Most important part about it is know what you know, but also know what you don't know.
Yep.
And so we reach out and we incorporate the people. So like this on this hand decoy right here. So this is our HDR hand decoy. And, we didn't start off like this. We relied on the Matt Moretz of the world, Josh Grossenbacher, Hunter Wallace, Shane Hendershot in the world. And then when we started talking about turkey decoys, Matt Moret had a really close friend, and Denny Galvis, somebody you probably know for sure. If you're a diehard turkey hunter, you know his name. And so we spent a lot of time talking to Denny about postures of turkeys, what it all meant, and all that stuff. And once we took had that information, we went back and we had, just like y'all, we were shooting somewhere between 45 and 60 turkeys every year on video, right? Yeah. There was a lot of them that we didn't shoot that was on video. And we spent hours and hours and hours going through video, watching postures, watching personalities of turkeys to make sure that what we were creating was communicating to the birds. I learned this a long time ago, guys, with waterfowl, is waterfowl communicate two different ways, one by voice and one by posture, right? And so that posture of a Canada goose or a duck or what have you means something to the birds in the air. Is no different than when you're fishing, you got to match the hatch, right? Whatever the fish are feeding on is what you want to be fishing with, color combinations, patterns, stuff like that. So what we try to do for our consumers is to make a product that matches what that turkey for that particular time of year, which springtime, is looking to mate, and it's all about mating and or pecking order. And so we like to play the strings of the pecking order quite a bit. Early in the year, that's probably more important than the mating part, because turkeys, the pecking order and them biting and things like that, like a strutter early in the year is hard to beat because they're wanting to fight, right? As it goes on later, mid-season to late in the season, strutter's pretty useless per se. You know what I mean? A tail fan will still be very effective, but no different than the hen. So we like to have different head positions and things like that where their hands. So like on the posture of this decoy, I'm going to back up a little bit. So on the posture of this decoy, this back being exposed, and then these are the primary feathers down here, which means the wing feathers, and these are the secondaries, these big feathers right here, right? So when a turkey, and we've all seen this, when a turkey is relaxed and showing emotion, this back gets exposed, right? Because the wings fall down. This turkey is very relaxed. Everything is cool. And she's either she's either A, ready to breed, or B, she's a little bit aggressive. But when they pop the wings and these wings cover this back up, we've all been there with a long beard, standing there strutting, going through all these stuff. As soon as he pops his wings, that means you better shoot because he's going to walk off, right? Or fly off. And the reason why they're popping them wings means the secondaries and the tertials come up and cover this up. They're cocking their wings so they can fly. At any second, they can take off in flight. But when their wings are down like this bird, they can't take off right away. So this is telling the other turkeys that are in the area that everything's fine where I'm at and it's all good, right? So there's a lot of that goes into, like when we're calling turkeys, we're trying to set that mood and that sound and that rhythm and that cadence to where sometimes you're not wanting to do much, right? Other times when they're henned up and there's a boss hen with them, you quit calling it the gobblers and longbeards, you start calling it that hen, right? And that's no different than the decoy of which head position you have. And then when you get into the Jake, right? So we had seen, that's the old stretch neck. That's my favorite pose. What I like about this is a subdominant Jake. That's what he's trying to do. Denny Galvis is the one that we already kind of thought this, right? But when we were talking to Denny Galvis, he brought it full circle and said, you know, when a Jake or a longbeard sticks his head up, I'm like, oh yeah, we've been watching that. So that's when he is trying to, it's like a short guy in the photos, standing on his tippy toes, right? Not a dominant bird, knows that he's not dominant, but is trying to look bigger than what he really is. So he's standing up as tall. That was Denny's. That's kind of what we were thinking. But Denny, you know, he told us that was the deal. And then obviously this head, when you put it on the decoy, this head's got this bird's more confident, right? So if you're hunting a little bit more mature bird or something like that, it's early in the season, this head's hard to beat because it's very realistic and it shows that, you know, a Jake and quarter strut doing his thing, right? But if you don't know, I always say, if you don't know the bird you're hunting, say you get in a truck and you drive 4 hours at night or across 2 states and you're meeting your buddy and you're hunting some turkeys that you don't know about, and maybe your buddy don't know about them either. Maybe he's a deer hunter, it's just got a lease, and he's like, yeah, man, I got a bunch of turkeys here. You want to go hunting? Yeah. I'm going to show up with a non-aggressive decoy because I don't know how many Jakes are on that property. I don't know the pecking order, if it's been established. Is there a bunch of Jakes running around kicking the crap out of longbeards? Is there one dominant longbeard that's going to shut every 2-year-old down? You don't know. You show up with a strutter, and you might be in trouble. Now, if you have a dominant longbeard and you're hunting him and you can get in his way with a strutter decoy, he's dead. He's going to see it and he's going to come running to solidify his pecking order. But if I don't know, I'm going to show up and probably use this head right here because what I'm trying to do is create a very natural look, decoy spread, what have you. But I'm also trying to create a sub-dominant posturing bird. This bird doesn't believe that he can kick anybody's butt. And that is very, very, very effective at a higher percentage of the time.
Fred, you talked about posture being one of the ways that birds communicate with each other. One of the things that fascinates the heck out of me is the dynamic nature of the color of a turkey's head.
Yep.
And so, and I'm sure that's something that you have to think about as a decoy
100%.
maker, like because this is locked in, it's not going to change.
Yeah. So when we did this, see, we always made, actually, Mark has one of the decoys that we're thinking about. I sent it to him last year, and he used it. Him and Paul used it, and they're going to use it again this year. It's a new style hen decoy that we don't know if we're going to make or not, right? So it has cost me money and time in the past. But before we launch a decoy, we'll do the carving, and we do a casting. Okay, I have a rotational casting machine here in my shop. And we'll make 6 or 7, 8 prototypes of the decoy, paint them a variety of colors, and we use them in the springtime, okay, the year before we launch. Not all the decoys that we created worked, all right? Some of them, we just didn't have the reaction we were looking for, so we just shelved them, right? Others, we had better reaction than what we thought to. But to answer your question, Tim, is obviously you have an all red head, you have, we call it a flag head, red, white, and blue, and then you have a white head. And what does that change? And when a gobbler's personality changes, his head color changes. And so we select the head colors that we believe, this is kind of the middle of the road. When they have we call it the snowball head or all white, especially a strutter, he's the dominant bird. He's the breeder. If there's 4 or 5 strutters and there's one with a really snow white head, he's the one that's going to do all the breeding. He's the dominant brother or the dominant strutter in that group, right? So if you're hunting a dominant bird, 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old that's got spurs 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 long, he's the king of the mountain, and you got a strutter and you want to get him fired up, you put that white head on him, and when he sees it, he's going to come running to fight, right?
And is that going to filter out other subdominant?
That's correct. If you have a 2-year-old show up, they're going to turn and walk the other way. They don't want nothing to do with it. But if you're hunting that trophy Tom, and that's the one you want to shoot, there's no better way to do it. A lot of times I always say in waterfowl, what you see Friday is what you do Saturday. I'm talking about decoy spreads. If you're watching Canada geese in the field or ducks on the marsh or whatever, you look at the body postures, how many heads are up, how many heads are down, how many of them are feeding or whatever. With waterfowl hunting, you watch that. And then when you set your rig up in the morning, you just duplicate that. You don't have to go on YouTube and talk to some experts. The experts are the birds that you're hunting. So if I'm scouting the night before and I see a longbeard out in the field and he's absolutely running every turkey off of the field, he's the king of the roost. That with a strutter decoy, that turkey is as good as dead as long as he shows up the next day. As soon as he sees you, he's going to come running at you. But then if I see a longbeard out there and I see some jakes running the goblin, where they start and you see 6, 7, 8, 10 jakes together running, I'm not going to use the jake decoy. I'm probably not going to call a lot. I'll probably end up just using a hen feeder and I'll be real subdued with my calling. And I'm not looking for a bird because a longbeard's not going to gobble a lot when it's like that, because every time he starts gobbling, them jakes are going to run to him, right? So you got to know a little bit about the bird that you're hunting. With waterfowl, it's not a pecking order situation. Turkeys, you're hunting them in the breeding season where there is a tremendous pecking order there. Earlier in the year, the better with the decoys, especially with jakes or strutters. Later in the year, you can roll right into, when it's late in the year, I might use some jake decoys, but a lot of times you'll just see me run 1 or 2 hen decoys, soft yelping, purring, clucking, bubble clucks, things like that. And not be very aggressive with my call or my decoy setup.
Feeder hen, lay down hen, what are both? There's kind of a,
if you put a lay down hen next to this jake, I see it all the time, you guys on your videos and TV and on DeerCast, they really cannot resist it. This decoy here, the straight hen, kind of like what you did with Lola. A lot of times I'll lay this one down in the grass as well if I don't have a lay down.
Yeah.
But that true lay down hen with a jake, if I'm going to use that jake, I'm going to have, the typical the head that you guys usually use right there, right?
Yep.
We'll put that on there and put the decoy no farther than 5 feet away. Most of the time within a foot, 10 inches, or staying right over the top, and they're going to come running.
For sure. It is amazing how deadly of a combination it is. And that brings up a good question. I think that, there's been a movement of sorts that you see mostly on, online movement where kind of more of a traditionalist type hunter. It's like, hey, the numbers are down and we're bag limits are high and we're in the breeding season and now we got decoys and some guys are reaping and, all this stuff. What are your thoughts on that side of it? Where it's like, I don't think about it in that way because I grew up around us using decoys. I never really didn't use decoys. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know any other, I haven't experienced it any other way. Obviously, if we're hunting in the timber and stuff like that, we're not using decoys. There's plenty of setups where we don't, but we definitely altered, just like deer, we altered our strategy to be a food plot centric strategy. Yep. We, moved our strategy with turkeys to be a field edge, a lot of times a blind or, a decoy set up in front of us. What are your thoughts on kind of that movement per se and maybe some of the backlash that, a company like Avian X might see because they're so effective and so lifelike in the quality of the decoy?
Man, I've seen this and heard this, at waterfowl hunting to you name it. You always have different sides. Look at politics today, right? It's so left and so right. So I think everybody's entitled to their own opinion to how they want to hunt. If you're a purist and diehard and you live where you can walk out your back door within a close proximity and you can be on the turkeys, do it however you want to do it. And especially if you hunt, you can hunt a lot. There's a lot of people out there don't have that same deal. Maybe they got a full-time job working 40, 50, 60 hours, blue collar job, construction, whatever. They got a family. They're hunting 2, 3, 4, 5 times a year. Those people need every advantage they possibly can, because a day or 2 days off work to go for opening weekend or whatever means a big deal to them, and they want to be successful. They want to see it. And so I don't judge how, if you want to reap them. It doesn't bother me however you want to do it, because bottom line is, it's not like you can shoot a turkey every day in a state. In some southern states you can shoot white-tailed deer unlimited every day of the year. Waterfowl, you can shoot 6 ducks every day, so it's a little bit different. Turkeys, a lot of states you can only shoot 1. Sometimes you can shoot 2 or whatever. Now, I know the population's struggling, but I don't think it's got to do anything with reaping. I don't think it has anything to do with decoys. I think it has to do with them not being able to reproduce. Now, these states have all cut back with limits and things like that. But I don't think, as long as it's legal, there's the debate in a whitetail, well, a crossbow or a longbow, and now, black powder. It used to be a traditional season, and now, a muzzleloader can shoot further than a good rifle if you buy the right one. So technology, cell cameras, food plots, feeding, supplements, you name it, there's always a deal. I just think it's, number one, if it's legal, you should not shame it. I think digital media has blown everything out of proportion. You have these little cults that get together to whether you either like decoys, you don't like decoys, you like reaping. I guess my question is, if you want to make it more difficult, how many of them people have TSS in their guns? Right? How many people have a full choke? They could shoot them at 70 yards, 80 yards, stone dead. I'm not against that. That's not what I want to do, and that's not what I will do. I don't want to shoot a turkey at 70 yards without a decoy or whatever, and say, that's diehard. I'm a diehard turkey hunter. When you get those birds, as both of you guys know well, when you get them to commit to a decoy or in tight, and you're talking about they're 5, 10, 15 yards away, you get a different experience with that bird that you would never get without a decoy yelping them up in the hardwoods, shooting them at 55, 60 yards across the ridge where you see this much of their head.
I killed the black dot.
Totally different experience. The difference between bow hunting a big whitetail versus sitting on a food plot, green plot, shooting them at 150, 250, 300 yards. Totally different experience. Not once, I don't care what you do or how you do it, but it's totally different experience. And in my opinion, I think a decoy experience is hard to beat. Especially when you're taking young folks or new people, to see them turkeys run right in there, and you just see the side of turkeys that you would never see without them. That's just my opinion.
For sure. And I think it's a tough thing, because obviously the purist isn't going to be using TSS either. I don't think, they're back against a tree, and, Will Primo said it last year. I'd rather have he's like, we sell all these things, but I'd rather have my back against a tree with my knee up and try to fool them, and get them in tight. And
so Matt, so you're telling me the purists, because I follow it some, so a lot of purists won't even use TSS.
I don't think so. I think they're it's okay, if the turkey gets away kind of thing. And I think they're just trying to get them as close, which that's how we want to get them as close as we can. Sure. Yeah. But, if we're starting our morning out, pretty much always set out a decoy set, whether we're in a blind or not, we set out a decoy set and we're on a field edge. Yeah. And as the day goes on, that's how your hunt kind of the turkeys decide how your hunt goes. Yeah. Like that's when we end up in the timber. We took Cameron, my son, the next day of the youth season, we took him to a property and started out in a blind, and, a decoy set up. The morning sucked and the weather wasn't good. And, clouds were in, it was windy. It just pressure's dropping. Wasn't great. So I said, you know what? We got an hour left. Let's get up. And we started striking, and showing him. And the night before, I practiced with him in the living room, just like, hey, butt on the ground, back against the couch. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you hold your gun up? Like, you're not going to have a bog pod. He's 10 now. He's still kind of a smaller kid, but it's like, let's practice. Let's, I think it's up to us to kind of share the other styles too, because as a hunter, as a decoy maker, I guarantee you there's been plenty of times where you didn't kill over a decoy because you knew the setup wasn't right for it. Once you have to start running and gunning and they're in the timber and they're in there and not coming out, you gotta get stealthy and use woodsmanship. And those are things that I think, not to speak for a guy that's a purist, because obviously we don't represent all of the same qualities.
Red dot scopes.
Yeah, but I think what the thought process is like, hey, it's okay if they get away. The population's not great. It's okay. It's like, I prefer that the timber experience or whatever the experience that the turkey provides me. I like going whatever way that, and I use my woodsmanship, right? I think the important thing is that we probably are losing a little bit is trying to teach that to the next generation. So I think, yes, we're going to use decoys 9 times out of 10, but that doesn't mean we always use them. I mean, it means whatever the setup is, however we need to be successful, we alter our plan in that way.
And what we're talking about is appreciation for the process.
Yes.
And that's the exact conversation you and I had last week when we were talking about plans for youth season. We'll show the video here in a little bit, but when I was talking to my daughter, Sophie, she's 13. She's hunted out of a blind. She killed with Zach and Gabby Plale in Forest last year. And I was like, hey, what do you think about doing it traditional style, back against a tree, exposed, like your wits against their wits, eye to eye on the ground with them? And I was kind of surprised. She's like, I'd like to try that.
She's 12, 13. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's awesome. We'll show it in a little bit here.
But it was like, hey, there's a whole other level here. You can choose to experience or not. And that's a thing that I wish people would understand the nature of liberty. It's like when people talk about we should pay more taxes. Well, you can pay as much into taxes as you want. That doesn't mean that I have to. There are a lot of things that you can choose to do, but you don't have to mandate other people do. And if people would just go so far as to pick the style experience that they want to have, but then not mandate it for everybody else, we would be great.
I don't have a problem with them calling people out for not great practice, unsafe practices or
unethical.
Unethical. Yep. Like, I got no problem with that. We're on board, right? But when it comes to some of these styles of hunting, like
it's a preference.
It's a preference. Like, I mean, and you're right. Like that experience, just the one with Lola, those Jakes would not have come up there. They were not gobbling. They knew we were up there calling. They saw that Jake decoy and they went right to it. And so she got to experience him up close. Last year, she didn't see any male turkey. Like we went to Dad's because it was supposed to be awesome. And she never saw she just saw a couple hens. So it's like, to your point, I want to show her what it can be like. I want to have a fun experience, and that the decoys definitely enhance that for sure.
Yeah.
So,
for sure. For sure.
Well, so, okay, that we talked turkeys. We talked a little bit about your background here. I want to talk a little bit about deer because you're a diehard deer guy too. And you last year shared with me a story of a big buck that you guys knew of in the area. And unfortunately you kind of found him dead. Give us the kind of background on that, because it's a world-class animal.
Yeah. So, our buddy Paradise, he's the one that kind of got me back into deer hunting. I grew up deer hunting when I was young, and then I grew up in rural Ohio, so I could walk. I could pheasant hunt, I could rabbit hunt, quail hunt, squirrel hunt, deer hunt, do whatever I wanted down my back door. I grew up on a farm, and so when I turned 16, I was like, I was ate up with the waterfowl. So because at that time there wasn't a lot of knowledge on how to communicate or call or decoy or do anything to a whitetail, right? It's kind of like, there wasn't a lot of media out there. There was some people in Texas, some people that knew it. Probably your dad and Mark knew how to do it, but there wasn't a lot of communication on how to do that. So I fell in love with the communication part of waterfowl hunting. Being able to call and decoy and hide from them was really interesting, to be able to fool one of God's creations. And so I had a background of whitetail hunting. My dad was a big game hunter. He was a elk guide in Colorado. He had shot a lot of whitetail, a lot of mule deer, a lot of elk and things like that. So I grew up, when I was 3 years old, I was in Rocky Mountain elk camp. Barely can remember it, but I grew up there, and then obviously we had a president named Jimmy Carter that brought this country to the end, right? Interest rates were 17, 18%. People are losing their houses. People going hunting and things like that. Basically, traveling and hunting came to an end. So my dad kind of got out of that. And that's the time we started waterfowl hunting. And so when I turned 16, I was full go waterfowl hunting. I traveled all over, and that's kind of where I made my name and made my business, obviously on the waterfowl side. So my son, of course, he comes along. As you all know, you all have kids, and he's like, Dad, I want to go deer hunting. I'm like, you gotta shit me, right? Like, we got all this land. We can go duck hunting. No, I want to go deer hunting. I'm like, oh no. So I was like, I didn't have anything set up. I didn't have land. I didn't have a lot of knowledge on it. I had checked out for 40 some years-ish, 30 years, And then I called Chris Paradise from Osso. Chris is one of my best friends. I talk to him all the time. I was like, will you take Gunner to the Grigsby? And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. I said, I just want him to shoot a big whitetail and see what it is you guys talk about or whatever. And he said, yeah, but you got to go buy a bow too. I was like, I don't want to buy a bow, and I want to go deer hunting. I want to go duck hunting. And he goes, nope, you got to do it. If he comes, you got to come. So I went and bought a bow. I went out there, and the first day I go, oh, I get it now. Like, obviously, all of us know the Grigsby and the reputation that surrounds it. But I had my eyes open of what managed whitetail or good whitetail habitat and location was. I went from the norm of you see a deer, every 2 to 3 sets, 4 sets, you would see a deer, to the one day I seen 5 deer over 170. And I hunt daylight to dark. I never come out of the tree stand. I seen 5 deer over 170 chasing, right? I'm like, okay, I got it now. You manage, you get good ground, you do the right things. No different than what I was doing for waterfowl. You do it for whitetail, and you can have good hunting. So I ended up, my first bow kill was in 2015 on that hunt. I ended up killing a 167 bow hunting, and I come home, I start buying property. Started calling Mark. Hey, what about this? What about that? Calling Lee Lakowski, Ben Rising, everybody. I knew Pat Reeves. I knew all these guys from being in the industry forever. I knew all the deer hunters, right? And so I just kept wearing them out. Grant Woods helped me and with a bunch of stuff and food plot stuff. So I started getting into it, and then we started buying land and started developing it. So then when I come home from Illinois, it was the beginning of. It was really, really cool because it was something that I've been a woodsman, a trapper, and an outdoorsman my entire life, right? And so it was just like this new toy, the new shiny trophy on the shelf, but you couldn't touch it because you didn't know anything about it to speak of. So I started talking to all these people, and next thing you know, I'm hunting, and what I realized, and it took me about a year and a half to figure this out, was I had spent my lifetime, much like what you guys have with DeerCast. You guys have spent your lifetime figuring out when whitetail would move. Well, I spent my lifetime figuring out when waterfowl would move, right?
Yep.
And so I thought whitetail would move the same time waterfowl do. And I was exactly dead wrong. And Tim and I, we've been talking about, hunt stand and DeerCast or whatever about maybe putting some waterfowl aside. What I figured out is everything that I knew about deer movement was greatly helpful, waterfowl movement was greatly helpful when I got into whitetail hunting because it was the exact opposite. So when duck hunting, if I look out the window and say duck hunting's going to be really good tomorrow, that means the whitetails are not going to move, right? And vice versa. And so it really lends good because I run 2 duck clubs and we duck hunt, waterfowl hunt a lot, right? So I got into whitetail hunting, and I started buying properties, managing timber stand management, and planting worm seed and grasses and food plots, and you name it, I'm doing it, right? And but similar to earlier in the podcast, I asked a lot of questions, and I studied, and I was more of a hands-off guy, to where I would go there and spot, and I would be on the property, but a lot of times I'd be 2 properties over because all my whitetail properties are 50 acres or smaller. Okay. And I would hunt from the outside in. I was talking to Spook Span one time, and we were talking about hunting big whitetail or whatever, and Spook was a waterfowl hunter and had some waterfowl properties in Kansas and stuff like that. So I know Spook a long time as well. And his theory was hunt from the outside in. So start here and start working your way in. Don't get bust in there. And so I took that approach, and I spent a lot of time with spotting scopes and binoculars. And I would put a tree stand to where I could see places from a long distance, and I'd learn the woods and the movement and the deer, and then I'd just start moving in pretty much hands off. And so now we got 8 or 9 properties that we whitetail hunt on. And we've been really successful. Once I figured it out of when they move, and then, talking to Terry and talking to Mark and all these guys, a wealth of knowledge and listen to what they do. Whitetail are very predictable. Not all of them, but a majority of them are pretty dang predictable. Especially I'm running a bunch of stealth cams, and I'm pretty hands off. We do not deer hunt a lot, but when we do, we're pretty successful because our properties are so small. We can't go every day. We can't go a lot. So we wait till things line up, weather conditions are right. We shot a lot of really good deer. We probably killed 15 deer, I'd say more like 20 deer, 150 or better in the last 10 years.
Nice.
On small properties.
Nice. And so, that's not easy to do. I mean, it's doable, obviously, but you have to have a little different level of discipline when you're hunting smaller parcels, and my buddies, I got a couple leases or whatever. They're like, you're no fun to hunt with because they're what I consider diehard deer hunters. Like, they enjoy going and sitting in a stand, and they enjoy going every day. And there's fine, but that reflects their wall a lot of times, unless you got a lot of properties. They're shooting 2 and 3 year old whitetails because everything that's mature vacates the land very quickly, right? So we're pretty hands off, and we're just targeting. I hunt, and my target is big deer. And if I go 2 or 3 years without shooting one, I'm fine. But I just have a certain size deer that I want to shoot, so I'm hands off. Whitetail is not my passion, but it is as far as the hunting side. But the game of growing and shooting mature whitetail is a damn sure in my passion. Sure.
Right? It's a different sport than deer hunting. And you guys know it way better than I do, but I think you got deer hunters and you got giant whitetail hunters, and that is not really the same sport.
Yeah, it's
not in my eyes so far.
It's a different approach a lot of times, and different level of commitment. You see guys like Mark and Terry, and
Ben Rising,
Ben Lee, all those guys. They do it at a much different level, and it's an obsession. And dialing. It's as much about the habitat and that side of things. So
yeah. So this is the whitetail here.
All right, for those listening and not watching, first of all, you should go check it out on DeerCast or on YouTube. This deer is gigantic.
Jeez.
The mass all the way through.
So we bought a brand new property, a 50-acre property parcel, and a friend of mine and I started a small company here where we're going to buy and sell whitetail properties. Keep the ones that we might want, but really and truly, we're going to buy small parcels, do timber stand management, do all the whitetail management on them about 3 years and start spinning them, right? So we had bought this 50-acre parcel. The very first night I went spotting, I got on, I was watching the deer. It's probably about 150. This is probably, I would say it was in August. Yeah, definitely August, probably mid-August. I was watching about 150 incher, and then like a 130, 135 out in standing soybeans. And at last light, I seen this deer stand up. It was this deer here in Dallas. And he stood up, and I was like, oh my God. Because I've shot some big deer. I've seen some big deer. Obviously, with the people I know, I've seen a lot of big deer. And when I travel waterfowl hunting in the Midwest, I see giant whitetail all the time, So I know what a big deer looks like. And actually, the year before I seen this one, I had shot my biggest deer at 211 on one of my properties. And when this deer stood up out, I was like, wow, that's like really, really special. Biggest whitetail I'd ever seen alive in my life. And so I watched him, and he was I'd say about half to 3/4 of a mile from our property. But we had a largest tract of timber in that whole entire area. So I figured it was a matter of time before he would start showing up. So long story short, he started showing up late October, early November. And we started hunting him a little bit. And then on the 5th of November was the last trail camera photo that I got of him. And so we figured that someone had shot him, but a deer of this caliber, someone's going to shoot him, you're going to hear about it, right? Well, we never heard anything, so we didn't know if it got poached, hit by a car, what happened, but we just knew he just disappeared, right? So we hunted the rest of the year. He never did see him again. I was spotting. I have a handheld thermal that I would go at night and just document where deer are. And then if I seen a big deer by himself, I figured it was a big whitetail, So I document that, and I'd go sit on the road with a spotting scope for hours and see what that deer was. I never did run up on him again. So long story short, we had my son got a call from one of his good friends that says, "Hey, my grandpa's a trapper, and he was walking this creek bottom and seen a great big whitetail with a drop tine. Are you still hunting that big drop tine deer?" And Gunnar said, "No." Long story short, we think he's dead. And he goes, "Well, I think I know where he's at." So we looked on the map, and we actually knew the landowner. It was adjacent to our property, like 2 properties over. So we obtained permission. I called the game warden, who's a friend of mine, and go, "Hey, I'm going to look for this deer. I'll give you a heads up if I find him. I'll send you a video so I can get a salvage tag and do everything legal." Because, a big whitetail deer, a lot of people get jealous, and I didn't want no ramifications or no issues. So we ended up, he took a drone and flew it, couldn't find him. It was snowing, the rain came up, and the creek was real high. We had to let it go down, and then we walked it, and this thing was buried in the creek. Only thing you could see was the top of the tine sticking out of the canary reed grass. And I went one direction, my son went the other direction, and we found him there. But we got him, and when it was all said and done, there was another fella hunting this deer. Of course, once the rumor got circling that we found the deer, there was been a couple guys hunting this deer, but this deer grossed 240 is what grossing. And
not 40.
Just unbelievable mass. The right side's incredible. You got a little sticker point right here, but the right side is just absolutely incredible. The mass and everything. And then of course the left side with that drop time.
He's got everything.
Yeah.
So he would have been probably new Ohio record, I would assume, right?
Probably not in the state of Ohio. And this is a heck of a deer, but I one of the better whitetails. But I mean, when you're talking about the deer that gets shot anymore in Ohio, you got the Beatty buck. The Beatty buck was actually, I was one of the first guys to see that when he shot that world record non-typical for a long time. He shot it actually right next to one of my goose leases. When Mike shot that deer, game warden was a friend of mine. His name was Dan Hickey. He called me and goes, "Hey, where are you at?" I was like, "Why?" He said, "I think the new world record whitetail's been shot. If you want to come and check him out."
Yes.
And,
yep.
And so there's been a lot of big deer in Ohio, sure. But
in your opinion,
that's the biggest one I ever seen right here.
Giant. So in your opinion, you've been around a lot of habitat. Now I know what you're saying about waterfowl days and whitetail days are different as far as, maximizing when they're going to move. But does the habitat play a major role in it? Because I know even up Highway 79 here in the St. Louis area, Missouri, like a lot of waterfowl clubs are there on the Mississippi, and some of the whitetail hunting is unbelievable. And a lot of times the waterfowl guys could give 2 shits less about the whitetails.
Deer walking through
and the whitetail
here.
Guys are like, "Can I just come over there?" But does that play a hand in it, or does it go hand in hand, waterfowl?
Yeah, I think it does here in the area that I live, Matt, simply because of the fact that there's so many places these deer can go that hunters have a hard time getting to them. Because it's so marshy. There's so much cattail flats and phragmite patches and islands and swamps and little islands and thickets and things like that these whitetail can go out and hide in the middle of nowhere. And we find that these big deer up in this area are very predictable. After hunting them and really getting in, I can barely predict where these big ones, well, not necessarily big, but just say a mature buck is going to bed.
Yeah.
And they're going to bed exactly where you think they would never be. They're going to be probably in plain sight. we find up in this area is they hunt you as much as you hunt them. And what I mean by that is once you, especially waterfowl hunting, there's been many times at my duck clubs that we shot 25, 30 ducks, shot 50, 60 times, and don't get back to the clubhouse. My trail cameras are 50 yards from me and there's a big deer standing there. Like they will position themselves to where they can see you coming and going. Yeah. I live in an open ag area. So I would say probably 80% of the train, maybe 90, 85 or 90, probably 90 actually, is open marsh and or open ag fields. We just have a big woods around here, boys. There would be 40, 50 acres, 60 acres, a lot of 10, 15, 20 acres, wood lots, oaks. And the reason why there's still oaks and there's still trees is because they're a wet spot. And they couldn't clear them, or they did clear them, they couldn't farm them. And then the pin oaks and the white oaks, swamp whites and stuff grew back in that area. But those deer will inhabit that. And a lot of times they'll be bedded right up against water or on an island. A friend of mine 3 or 4 years ago, he had been hunting this deer, could not get him figured out. Well, a guy was driving down the road and seen him, and he goes, "Hey, man," I called him and said, "If you want to shoot that deer, I just seen him. He's in the marsh." He's like, "What?" He said, "I'm telling you, he just stood up. He's standing in the middle of your marsh right now." He goes, there's no land out there. He goes, "I'm telling you, I can tell you right where he's at." So we got his bow. Long story short, he made a successful stalk. And the deer was a straight typical, I think it was a 10. Yeah, straight typical 10. I think he scored 70s, like 173, 174, something like that. But he was bedded on a muskrat hut in the middle of the He was laying up on top of the muskrat hut when he walked up on him, and he heard him coming, and he stood up and looked the wrong way, and he was able to draw and get the shot. But the deer was literally in the middle of 2 foot of water, laying up on a muskrat hut.
Incredible.
So, thermal cover. Late in the year, those cattails, phragmites, thickets are where most of the deer are, because they can get that thermal cover. Sure. When they lay down, the wind's off of them, and then they can sun themselves. We find that most of our deer will bed on the south side of the woods where they can sun themselves. And in my case, is where they can also see the road. They will bed to where they can see where they believe humans are going to come from in this open ag area.
Diabolical.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get out of your depression from finding that deer? That's a giant.
Well, I'm just glad I have him.
Yeah,
but,
true.
As much as I'm glad I had him, I wish we'd have shot him, right?
Yeah.
Or I wish somebody else would have shot him. The memory of this deer walking to someone with a bow in their hand and making that fatal shot would be more important to me than holding a dead head.
Yeah,
sure.
I wish I had that opportunity. I wish somebody would have had that opportunity. I wish it had been me or my son or my partner, but yeah. I wish a hunter would have had the opportunity to take this deer versus what we believe it was a car. Basically hit him in the guts and he went away. But
unreal.
Heartbreaker.
Yeah, it is heartbreaker. But there's always another one coming up.
Yep. That's why we go.
Well, I've never seen too many 240s.
Really? Lousy
140s. I got all kinds of 140s.
I'd be happy with the 140.
Yeah.
All right, Fred, we're going to get into some of the kind of the show shenanigans we typically get into. You want to stick around for another 5 minutes or so?
Oh, yeah.
All righty. Tim, take it away here.
All right. So we need to remind folks that the tracker giveaway is live in DeerCast, so that you can jump in there. Potentially, we draw in December. So go register right now.
Tracker 800.
Yeah. Drop your email in there. It's free. It's quick. Do it before you forget. But yeah, definitely go in and do that.
Sportsman Channel is your home for Winchester and Drury's natural born. Join the cast on some of the most hard-hitting action on outdoor TV. See the full schedule at thesportsmanchannel.com.
And then we got a podcast shout out from Evan, who said, "Great podcast, solid topics. Whoa. Hawaiian rolls."
We went hard on the Hawaiian roll topic a couple podcasts ago.
I have rarely seen the kind of disdain that I saw when Paul went in on Hawaiian rolls.
Yeah, he hates them. It's surprising.
That was surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a principled man, though.
This is the kind of topics that we cover, Fred. You're lucky we didn't talk about more condiments or.
Right. We could have gone longer for sure.
Yeah. But the point is, we need more reviews.
Yes. Thank you for bringing it around. Evan gave us 5 stars. We love that.
Hawaiian roll reviews.
Yeah.
All right.
It's hard to believe somebody don't like them.
That's right.
Yes.
I mean, I just talked I came up with like 3 or 4 ways to make something with Hawaiian rolls.
He may have changed his mind a little bit.
That's right.
I don't know, but he was like, too sweet.
It was surprising.
Personally offended him.
All right.
HS Strut and the DoD Signature Series of calls puts the sound of spring at your fingertips. From the first owl hoots of the morning to the last quiet clucks and purrs in the moment of truth. Be ready for any calling situation the turkey woods can throw at you with HS Strut.
All right. Well, we got the Real Wild clip. We talked about Sophie's hunt. So this past Saturday was the opener for Missouri's youth season. And like I said, Sophie and I talked. I was like, hey, you want to go eye to eye on the ground, no blind? She said, yeah, let's do it. So we talked through, like, if you can see their head, they can see you. You got to move when you can, because if you move the wrong time, they'll pick you off. And so here we are. You can see her silhouette. These birds came in from behind us.
They go ropes.
Yeah, they're not small birds.
How big is this property, Tim?
9 acres.
That's amazing.
And these birds weren't. All right, so she's about to take her shot here.
They're walking over to the Avian X.
Yep. And so she's shooting that Winchester TSS. And neither of us can believe that just happened, because I'm posted up about 15 yards behind her and to her right.
Yeah.
So close enough to watch her and close enough to call, because I expect there are birds roosted off to our left and on another ridge. These birds came from a totally different property.
That one's got a rope on him.
Yeah, kids, 2 of them are rookie.
The dominant one, but I saw them across in the neighbor's field. They were running, and I heard them hit the woods behind me. And I've got the 4K camera up and running with the monitor open on it. And I've got a camo netting draped over it. So it's a little bit, but they walked behind me so they could see the monitor. They could probably see my chest heaving, because, I mean, I literally could have put my arm out and touched one of them as they walked past me. And I tried whispering to her, like, they're coming. They're on your right. And afterwards, she was like, I was losing my mind, because she had the walkers on, and you can hear they have that they can intake sound, and they give you some directionality. She's like, I was losing my mind. I literally forgot my right from my left. So she's craning her neck to the left, looking. She's like, I can hear them. They're so close. And she kind of goes straight with her head, and out of the corner of her eye, she sees them like steps.
They're like steps away from her.
Yeah.
She shoots them at like, what, 4 yards? 5 yards?
Yeah, about that. It was super close, because again, I intended the birds to come from her left in the plot, and plenty of visibility and everything. But in that close, I mean, you're kind of tied up, because if you're not dead on, the pattern is maybe the size of a golf ball or a baseball at best.
Yeah. Too close.
If you watch it in slow-mo, you see the wad bounce off this bird's head. She got everything.
So what decoy setup did you go with there?
That was the Jake and the hen.
Yeah. And you're in 9 yards or 9 acres, sorry. And so it's mostly timber all around, right?
Yep.
And then you carved out a little clover plot there. This is the spot where you carved out this clover plot.
Yeah, this is where we killed the safe buck a few years ago. Yeah. And there's another plot on a ridge that was off to the left that we had planned on hunting. When I got there in the morning, we're running a little bit late as usual. I hit the owl hoot, and there's birds roosted on the plot that we intended to hunt. So this was a plan B. Like, we got to hustle and get over to this spot. And those birds that were roosted on the property just never, like, she said she saw one pop its head up and look a little bit, but dismiss itself. These birds came from, I don't know how far away.
Wow.
But they were on a mission.
Pretty awesome, man. That's a good real wild clip.
Yeah. And after she shot, she's like, Can I shoot another?
Nope, not until week 2.
Nope. No, you can't.
So, well, congratulations, man. That's an exciting moment for both of you guys.
Thank you. Yeah.
Send the best footage. I told you right away. I was like, you need to send that over to Taylor and Ellie and the girls on the social team. Like that's just awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Walking right by your daughter like that between you two. That's really cool.
Yeah. And I was this close to not. In fact, I think I told you I probably won't film it.
Yeah.
Probably not going to bring the camera gear. Just keep it simple.
Yeah.
And
good thing you did.
decided to.
No,
I'll tell you one thing with decoys, and I learned early is sometimes you'd hear them gobbling behind you and you're like, oh, they're coming from behind me. And I don't know how many times we turn around to face a turkey and I've never seen them. All of a sudden you hear your decoys getting their butt kicked.
Yeah.
And you turn around and they're standing in your decoys. Like, I don't know how many times. Remember Shed from, we were down in Texas one time, and it was the first prototype of the LCD. We're down there hunting it down at the Rio Roundup. And these turkeys were to the left, just hammered. And we messed with them for probably about 45 minutes. It was like a Mexican standoff. They were not going to come any closer, right? So there was 2 birds come out in the field a ways away, and they were gobbling, and we said, we're going to go after them. So we get up, leave the decoys, go after them. We're there about an hour, and we didn't have no success. We come back, and our decoys were beat all to. As soon as we kept calling, those strutters come out, and I literally had spur marks all over the decoy to beat the heck out of it. We just weren't patient enough.
That's what I was going to say. Patience is a virtue with turkey hunting, because you can, you call enough, and they may not be responding, but a lot of times they will. If you could sit there, it's kind of a boring way to hunt turkeys.
Yeah.
But if you could sit there, there's a good chance they're gonna come check it out at some point. Just to see what the
patience will kill you a lot of turkeys.
Yeah.
Where I hunt, guys, I don't have big tracts of land, so you can't run and gun a lot if you don't have a lot of dirt, because all you do is end up spooking all your turkeys. And next thing you know, you just spook them for the year, right? Once they figure out you're calling and they see humans, they're done. They're almost like a whitetail per se, right? Once they get spooked. But if you got a lot of dirt, there's nothing better than, like, I obviously Mark's a running gunner, Chris Paradise. You gotta have your track shoes on when you go hunt with him. But they got a lot of dirt. My stuff, I err on the side of, I probably err on being too patient. Hunting 20, 30, 40, 50 acre farms. I let them come. I know they're going to come, and I err on the side of being patient. And also, as you filming TV and filming video, being patient will definitely work to your favor, because you're just not trying to shoot a turkey. You're trying to get some really cool footage. And once you get in the right setup, it's a pretty spot. You're like, when you're walking through the woods, like, this is a good location. It'd be a great place to kill a longbeard right here. So beautiful. I'll wait that out.
Yeah.
And because it just makes better TV and better video. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Scenery doesn't hurt. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, we do have some new Rack Pack members. We got Chad Lundmark, Bradley Hen, Lucy Fur, and Kevin Van Devon.
I think Lucy Fur is a fake name.
That's evil.
Lucy Fur.
Jeez.
What's she furring?
Fred. All right. Well, do you have any closing thoughts for us, buddy?
No, we get I haven't even been turkey hunting yet this year. Here in the Northland, it's not even opened up. We opened up on the 19th. And so we're going to get after it. I'm going to go Indiana and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania opens the beginning of May there. So in the Northland, it hasn't even started. I can't wait. We're going up. Hopefully, I'm going to go up with Van Dam, Paradise, and Toxie, go up to Michigan. Van Dam's got an unbelievable place up there. And I'll be honest with you, Michigan's got as many Eastern turkeys as about any state. It's kind of like Missouri in the heyday.
In the late 90s.
Is crazy. So, going to do that. Going to slide over the border, hunt in Ontario. Also loaded with Eastern. So,
really,
get ready to get after it.
You got some good trips coming up. The Van Dam trip, every year we get to see, just following along on social media, get to see you guys on that trip. And it seems like, I know, like, he got decimated a little bit with the HD on his deer herd. Yeah. He's a diehard whitetail guy, but he's got a bunch of turkeys. And
trust me, I get videos every day from the trail camera. Loaded.
It seems like he's, it seems like he's just as ate up with all that stuff as he was with fishing. So.
I actually think he fishes so he can hunt. Think obviously he's a passionate fisherman, but man, he loves hunting.
Yeah.
He comes down every year, goes duck hunting, and then he's ate up with whitetail, and the turkey's got him I mean, he's all about the turkeys. But he also does a lot for wildlife. You know, he's always, when he's home, he's always on that Kubota, out working dirt, planting food plots, doing whatever he can. Timber stand management. That guy does not sleep. He's a full go guy.
Yep. Yeah.
Good
Common thread with all you guys. You know, you, Mark, Van Dam, Terry,
all
like
gas.
it's all gas and
Work.
And all work. That's right. Well, we appreciate you taking time out of that work today and jumping on with us and sharing some of your stories. And more than anything, appreciate the friendship over the years. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate you, fellas.
Yeah, been a pleasure as always.
Good luck this spring.
All right, man.
Same.
All right.
All right, Tim.
Fred.
I think that's it for today.
All right. Well, it's a beautiful time of year, folks. Get ready to lock in.
It's short and sweet, especially if you're hunting a state or two. It's here and gone before you know it. So enjoy it. And until next time, peace out.
DeerCast is completely updated and better than ever. Prep, predict, and pursue your target buck with our detailed maps, weather, and 14-day movement predictor.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast Maps, waypoints, weather, virtual rain gauges, and more. Every tool you need to get ahead of your game.